Everyone wants to leave a legacy of positivity in the world around them. Whether you are a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, a nonprofit executive director, or even a soon-to-be entrepreneur, one fact is always true. The easiest and most effective way to catalyze change in the world around you is through commerce and through business. But how do you do it? You've come to the right place. Welcome to the Changemakers Collective, a place where people can come and get educated and encouraged and empowered to be the impact agent in the world around them. Brought to you by Silverback Ventures, Steph Thomas and Scott Woods have over 50 years combined experience helping companies and owners amplify the voice and multiply the impact of purpose-driven businesses. Join us each week as we discuss what it means to live a life of purpose on purpose.
Well, welcome back. Thank you for tuning in to the Changemakers Collective. I am Scott. That is Steph.
Hello.
That's Kristen over there that you can't see, but she is running the show for us. And we are coming to the conclusion of our conversation around the strategic planning and leadership development and leadership styles that derail the completion or the execution of your strategic plan. And I know this is something that you are like super geeked out about. So I'm going to let you lead about. So we're talking about things you can do as a leader that really kind of squashes progress.
Just to give you a little bit of background for those that are new to us, I have a very long history in HR. I have a huge passion for leadership development. And in a healthy environment, a leader can take a team to heights that even the team do not realize that they can meet. A bad leader or a leader that's not self-aware can destroy not only a team, but a company.
Yeah, I agree.
So, again, I do the leadership challenge. I love to facilitate the leadership challenge, whether you're an intact team or you're not an intact team. But there's some pillars that really you can build on, grow on, only work on one or work on all five, but it makes a difference.
Let's for those that have lost their mind and haven't been following us from the beginning. You know, if you haven't followed us from the beginning, yes, if you're recently engaged with Silverback Ventures on our podcast, go back and watch some of these episodes. They're really good. And they're really funny because there's a lot of bloopers that we have in there as well. But the Leadership Challenge is a teaching on how to create a better leader, both individually and corporately.
Absolutely.
So I just want to make sure, as we're talking about the Leadership Challenge, which is a great tool for both individual leaders and teams of leaders, that people have some idea what we're talking about.
So let's talk a little bit around some hiccups that leaders can do. Before we do that, there are leaders and managers.
Mm-hmm.
All companies need both.
What's the definition between the two?
Okay. A manager really manages the day-to-day operations. The leader is vision casting, and through an inspired shared vision can lead teams to their next greatest and best. You need people that have their eye on the day-to-day.
Mm-hmm.
You need people that is thinking, what's next? That's why you need both. Sometimes you hear people say leaders aren't managers and managers aren't leaders. Well, depending on who you are, you may have to step into a leadership role or you have to step into a management role. You also hear that you're either born with it or you're not. I would say it's just like anything else. It is a skill that comes easier to some than others, but it is a skill with some self-awareness you can build on and become a great leader.
I agree. I think management is more about the process, whereas leadership is more about the people.
Absolutely.
And I agree with you. I think there are people that naturally tend to find themselves in leadership positions because of their personality or their experience or whatever, but you can learn to be a better leader.
Okay, so I think that's a good point. There are times that you take a very productive staff member and you promote them into a management or a leadership position. And if you are a staff person that finds yourself in that situation, or if you are the company owner, leader, and you have to promote someone in that situation, if that's not your comfort zone, you need to do some work around how to developing that skill. So, we had a client that happened, and they brought us in just to develop that person. And it was a struggle for that individual because they didn't have the mindset that they needed to grow.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I think there's so much that we could unpack there. As the ownership or the senior leadership, choosing who to promote has to include an understanding of how they show up to work. You may have the classic example that everybody uses in all the business use cases is you have your most productive salesperson and you immediately you promote them to be sales manager, taking them out of production and managing their own activities and putting them into a situation where they have to manage the activities of other people, and it fails miserably.
Okay, but I think that's a good point, Scott, because and if my sweet nephew Corey is listening, thank you for listening. But along those lines, he is very successful on the sales team, super successful. But he voiced very early on, I want to be the most successful in my team so that I can lead a team of successful people. Okay, he already has the mindset and you know what you're doing. But if he was successful and he is a people person for your team, but you have him not doing the best use of his time, which is selling, then you have just taken somebody very productive and bottlenecked them.
Squashed them. You have to have people in their area of highest and best use. And if you don't know what that is as the leader, shame on you. Find out.
Right.
Find out. No, you can't grow at this organization if you don't know who's on your team.
Right.
You may have the most unbelievably talented marketing person working in operations.
So let's talk about, you're already the leader.
Yep.
And there are some things that you do or do not do that makes you a great leader.
Okay.
Now, I have a cute little checklist that's going to be in our show notes, and I have it on my Remarkable.
You. All right, come on.
Let's talk through some of these, Scott.
I'm excited.
Just thinking through a destructive leader. They steal the credit and dish out the blame. So
we've all worked for people like that.
We all work for people like that.
That's an easy one.
Now, not only when do you steal credit, but in a conversation. So if Scott and I were having a conversation and I said, Scott, I think the best thing that we can do as a team is paint the wall white. And Scott's response to me was, well, we shouldn't really do that, but we probably should paint the wall white. Okay, that's what I just said. And I know that sounds funny, but as leaders, we've experienced that with other leaders.
Of course. Yeah, of course. It happens all the time.
Right. So don't take credit for people's idea. But if it's wrong, you should take the blame. As a leader, as our team, we missed the mark, blah, 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 blah. Not Scott missed the mark.
Mm-hmm.
But if it was done well, man, we have a great team. Scott actually spearheaded that, and this was his idea. Scott, do you want to talk about that a little bit? Like, how easy was that?
Yeah. I mean, when you talk about that with great coaches in the sports world, they are the first ones to own all of the blame, but deflect all of the glory.
Right.
And that's what needs to happen in a leadership role.
So when we were talking about the leadership challenge, Encourage the heart is a big one. Now, that does not mean that you put a little note that says, today I'm going to tell Scott thank you. And as you walk by Scott's desk, you're like, good job, Scott. And you keep walking, right? That's just not genuine. But if I were to say, man, Scott, when you were spearheading XYZ team, you knocked it out of the park. You made us all look good. Thank you for being a part of the team. I mean, even saying that to you, he is a great part of the team.
Thank you.
Felt different than, good job, Scott.
Well, and it also starts with knowing who your teammates are. And I can imagine there are some listening now that are like, look, I own a company of 250 people. I can't possibly know every single one of them.
Right.
Shame on you.
Right.
You can know them all. And you have to make the effort to find those connection points in order to encourage the heart, so that the mere fact, if you have a company of 200, 300, 1,000 people, the mere fact that you as the owner are acknowledging that person's existence is going to encourage them.
You know, I worked for a company, Ameritrust, and this was during the subprime. So clearly it was subprime mortgage industry, and it's no longer around. But there was an individual, his name was John Owens. And we had a huge team. I don't know. There was probably 150 people. I don't know how, but he knew, like he knew my name. He always would ask me, you know, about, how's your kid? Now, I don't think he knew my kid's name, but he at least asked. So he acknowledged at some point. And then we would have team lead meetings, and the team leader would say, hey, by the way, you know, we had a team lead meeting. I said that you did a good job with XYZ. So he created such a culture that even the team leaders were doing independent recognition. That's a big deal.
Yep. Okay, what's next on your list?
Okay, next on my list is they ignore toxic behavior. Okay, so this is what happens when a leader ignores toxic behavior, right? It generates meetings after the meetings. It generates insubordination. It generates
Acceptance of toxic behavior.
Absolutely. Now, the other piece of that is you absolutely need to address toxic behavior, but you don't have to make a public spectacle out of the person that's creating, unless it's warranted. And let's talk about that. If you're having a meeting and you're blindsided by someone standing up and yelling at you as the leader, then you would say, you know what? This is inappropriate. I need you to have a conversation with you at a later time. You've addressed it. But then you need to really have a meeting with them afterwards and have a hard conversation. And don't be afraid to fire someone.
Oh, man. We've experienced that firsthand.
We have.
We have a client where we actually experienced that firsthand. Somebody stood up in the middle of the meeting, basically told the owner that they had no idea what they were talking about, and they should just rely on him to do his thing because he was the expert.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody in the meeting was like, what is, and nothing happened.
But something did actually happen.
Go ahead.
In the next meeting and the next meeting, multiple people started having that behavior.
Because
it wasn't
nothing
addressed.
was addressed. Yes.
Right. So again, that can break down your team. Mm-hmm. Another one is they dismiss feedback and resist change. Well, the opposite of that is that you receive feedback and you are resilient and you can change, right? So we tell a story in the leadership challenge. One of the principles are that, you receive feedback. And so everybody, when they do a self-assessment, say, oh, yeah, I love feedback. Okay. The truth is,
I don't want any feedback.
Right. Well, if I told Scott I love feedback, and Scott was like, hey, Steph, by the way, in this meeting, this happened. My first response is like, what? That didn't happen like that. Do you think Scott's going to ever tell? Yeah, Scott is going to tell me again. But
we've had that exact conversation. What do you mean? I didn't say that.
Now, another thing that you may say is, Scott, I appreciate that you said that. I'll take that into consideration. Okay. And then you get in your car and you're like, What is
That
he
guy's out of his
thinking?
mind.
Right.
You have the meeting after the meeting. Do
That
you believe he
means-
said that to me?
You did not receive feedback. Receiving
Correct.
feedback is, Stephanie, I need you to turn your computer off and engage in conversation sometimes. And the next time we are in the meeting, I turn my computer off and I'm engaged in the conversation. I've received and I've made a change. So that's one. They lack empathy and understanding. Here's the thing. If you say that you are a family-oriented individual and someone on your team comes to you and says, my senior mother is living with me and I'm experiencing some problems, and next week I'd like to start working from home 1 day a week, and you tell that individual, well, we're a 9-to-5 job and you have to, and if I let you do that, then everybody's going to have to do that. You have destroyed that person and probably have created, and I say probably because this can happen, that you have created an environment where she or he is silently quitting. That means they show up for work,
100%.
but they don't care anymore.
They're totally not engaged any longer.
When you don't trust your employees, they don't trust you. When you share trust with them, depending on if they're coming from a healthy environment, what the company culture is, because some of that has to take place in work and shift a little bit. But if you show trust, people tend to start trusting
Yeah, I mean,
you.
we say that all the time. If you treat your people right, they're going to treat you right.
Right.
And if you treat them like the amazing humans that they are, they're going to show up and be amazing humans.
Absolutely.
If you treat them like a cog in the wheel that are replaceable at a moment's notice, that's how they're going to act.
Absolutely.
And I think even going back to the empathy piece, there's a weird line, because I've been on both sides of that, where you are so sympathetic is probably the better way to say it. You're so sympathetic that you get walked on as the leader, where you're saying, okay, whatever, that senior mom, I have to work from home 1 day a week. Okay, well, you're a receptionist, so that's going to make it hard. And you say, well, how could you possibly do that? Okay, well, work from home 1 day a week. Well, I actually really need to work from home 5 days a week, and I still want to get paid, and I still want to be the receptionist. And if you don't do that for me, then I'm going to treat this as a hostile work environment. You have to set boundaries, but still walk the line of being sympathetic, empathetic, and compassionate.
Okay, Scott, let's walk that out a little bit, because I think that's a great thing. That could happen.
Oh,
100%.
No, that's happened to me personally.
Right. So as a leader, well, that's just not functional. You cannot be the front office receptionist and not be in the building.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a conversation. So you either, as a leader, as a company owner, if you have a large company or small, is there a better fit for that person? Hey, let's talk about where there's a better fit. Or you allow someone to resign.
I agree.
Right.
I agree. But you have to set those boundaries up front.
Absolutely.
And you have to be able to say, this is still a work environment, and I'm going to treat you with the respect that you're due, but I actually expect that respect back. And I think that trust is the same way. It's got to be a two-way street, because you cannot be the leader if you don't have people following you.
Right. Well, that is the whole part of leadership.
Right? So you can't create people that are going to follow you unless you create the shared vision and create an atmosphere where they feel enabled to act, and they feel like they're being encouraged. But the same has to come back, because I've been in a leadership role where I felt like I was creating all those atmospheres and was getting nothing in return in terms of work ethic and respect and diligence and all those things. And I was like, all right, well, you immediately feel defensive and say, well, screw that. I'm just going to be like cracking the whip. And that's not who I am as a human. So that's not how I showed up. But you feel some kind of way about the people you have around you.
Well, and I think that when you have this is just how it is. When you have a trusted environment, when it's a healthy environment, then you didn't just wake up one day and decide to be the primary caregiver of your adult parent. Usually, if you are in a healthy environment, you have had conversations with your leader to say, hey, this is happening. So there is a plan that is happening. If you're in a situation where you're blindsided and that is what has to happen and it has to start next week, then again, if it's a trusting, healthy environment, then typically you can find a way to pivot, or you can say, I need to train my replacement, and you're looking for something that's more conducive to your lifestyle.
Yeah, I think we have to be, I want us to be careful that all the responsibility is not on the shoulders of the leader.
Absolutely not.
In
but
one
if you're
respect,
leading a good team, then it's a shared.
It's in one respect that's true, but on the other respect, even as I said it, it's your responsibility as a leader to hire people that share your values, so that when you can go into a trusting relationship, you're spending more time with the people at work than you spend generally with the people in your family. So why not hire people that are not only share your values, but have a complementary set of skills so that you can build the company together?
Scott,
but somebody has to lead.
Right. Scott, I just as a shared conversation, I was part of a team that the leader was very toxic to the environment. And they eroded trust so deeply that the effects of that leadership this individual left a legacy for me of destruction in leadership. I would have never had the conversation with them that I was taking care of a elderly parent, because it would have been used against me. In other leadership instances, there was enough trust there. So again, if the leader has created a trust environment, they have enabled me to act, they've modeled the way, we have a shared vision, they've encouraged, they've done all the things, then it wasn't a blind side when I've had to have like, hey,
Correct.
man, this. So I think that's how you share responsibility while being led by a fantastic leader.
Yeah, yes, I agree with that, because we both in situations where we've been on both sides of that fence,
Right.
and it's hard. It's hard to be
Abused
the leader.
or enabled.
Yeah, it's hard to be the leader when you feel like you're being taken advantage of, but you also don't want to be in a position where you're just telling people what to do all day long. You want to get
Right.
people excited about what you're doing so that you can create collaboration and innovation.
Well, based on creating collaboration and innovation, you got to allow people to grow. So if you're telling people, I need you to think better, I need you to do this, but you stop them from growing in every way, well, they can't.
Yeah,
They stop collaborating. They can't innovate. Again, they silently quit. And, we went through COVID where people just decided life was too short, my job was too toxic, all of these things. So now when we are in the great come back to work era of our generation, I guess, leaders had to really take into consideration a tight balance of just what you're saying. How much leeway do I give? How much do I hold to the standards? There is a process in place for a reason, but real people come to work.
Correct. Yeah. I agree with
So
that.
you have to balance that. But I think, again, going back to, if you have a productive leader, if you have a leader that respects their team, the team will respect the leader.
100% agree. Yeah, 100% agree. But it's a two-way, and you have to be able to, because we I'm gonna let you get back to your list, but this,
No, that was my list.
It makes me crazy a little bit when I'm gonna use my daughter as an example. She worked for a company where she was part of the team, and she would complain about decisions that the leadership team was making. And I said, well, do you have an opportunity to bring this up in meetings, all the things that we've just been talking about? And she's like, well, I bring it up, but nobody ever is listening. And she got more, as she was getting ready to transition off of that, she got more and more vocal internally with us about, how, the company was trying to keep the thing down. I wanted to revolt against the man. And then she took a new job where she was now the leader. And I'm
She's
like,
the man.
You realize now that they're complaining about you. Well, and then we had a really good productive discussion around what does it mean to be a leader that is both catalytic for growth, but also empathetic and compassionate with your team so that together you can raise the bar of the organization completely.
I was talking to my son the other day about you may not like, and my son loves where he works, loves it. So just to throw that out there. But we were talking about leadership. And I said, first of all, trust is built slow and broken quickly.
True.
Second of all, you can love the environment that you work in, but not necessarily like your leader.
Mm-hmm.
A good leader does not always have to be your best friend.
No.
And people confuse that.
That's true.
Oftentimes.
And that's bad for the leader as well.
It's terrible.
And that's why
It's too
leadership
much pressure.
that's why leadership is so lonely. Right? We talk about all the time, the top of the organizations is the loneliest place to be. Everybody wants to be the CEO, make all the big bucks, but nobody wants all the downside of being the CEO where every decision rests at your doorstep. Anything that goes wrong,
Or right.
but anything that goes wrong is going to be your fault.
Absolutely.
Very few people will say everything that goes right is because of you.
Oh, no, it's your
They
team.
will always say it's the team.
Yeah.
And if the leaders, as we discussed earlier, the leader's going to deflect the glory to the team. And very infrequently, especially in a privately held business, is the leader going to be attributed as the driver of success. They're just not. So,
Which is how it should be.
That is
Again.
how it should be. That is how it should be. But that creates a loneliness that is very infrequently talked about being the leader. So when you're talking about creating your team and building the trust within your team and creating an atmosphere that is healthy across the board, it starts with a self-aware, humble leader that surrounds him or herself with like-minded people that are buying into the shared vision, that are excited about where the company is going to go and feel like they can add value, so that you don't ever run into those things that we just talked about. It is very difficult to do those things and be a dysfunctional leader if you've got a great team of people that share your vision about what the company's trying to accomplish. That's why we talk about all the time, what problem are you trying to solve? Because if your company is designed to actually solve a problem and not just create widgets that are going to sell to somebody that puts money in your pocket, some of those petty little annoyances become tolerable because, hey, you know what? It doesn't matter we argued about that. We're actually changing the world through whatever we're doing. So let's figure out how to get back to that. And I think that's why, as we talk about leadership development, we have to talk about both sides of that equation. The leader being, yes, that's their job. That's why they get paid, because it's hard. But the team around them has to be complementary and not just subordinate.
So as we wrap up, I want to just remind our listeners that, of course, we facilitate the Leadership Challenge, and that helps leaders on both sides of that. It helps them develop their leadership skills, and it allows them to trickle that down to a team that is fully functional. So as you continue to live a life of purpose on purpose, make sure to come back, subscribe, like us.
And hit us up with some questions. Let us know what you want to learn about, and we'll add it to the next group of episodes that we're going to do.
Till
We
next
loved
time.
hanging out with you guys, so have a great afternoon.
Hit us up. Hit us up. Hit us up. Hit us up. Thank you for listening to the Changemakers Collective. If you've enjoyed this episode, please help us grow our community by leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts or rating us on Spotify.
You can also find our podcast on YouTube, so you can come and leave us a comment over there as well. If you want support growing your business and scaling your vision, visit us at silverbackventures.org or connect with us on LinkedIn.
Thanks again, and we'll see you on our next episode.